There is one mental habit you practice every single day, often without noticing, that quietly determines how much money you make, how confident you feel, and how far you go. It's not discipline or motivation. Most people get this wrong, and that's exactly why their results never change. That habit is already at work in you, right now. It has been shaping your decisions long before you were aware of it. It operates quietly beneath your conscious planning, beneath your goals, beneath your intentions. You may believe your life is guided by effort or intelligence or luck, but the deeper truth is more subtle and more powerful than that. Every day, without realizing it, you rehearse a certain inner conversation. You repeat assumptions about who you are, what is possible for you, and what kind of outcomes you should expect. This silent repetition becomes familiar. Familiar becomes comfortable, and comfortable becomes normal. Over time, that normal becomes your reality. Most people think change begins with action. They believe if they push harder, wake up earlier, or force themselves to be more disciplined, results will follow. But action is always the end of a process, never the beginning. Before you act, you think. Before you think, you assume. And before you assume, you have already accepted something as true. This is where the conflict begins. You may consciously want more confidence, more income, more control over your direction. But unconsciously, you may be practicing a mental habit that contradicts that desire. One part of you wants expansion. Another part expects limitation. And the part that wins is not the louder one, but the one you repeat most often. Your mind does not argue with what you tell it repeatedly. It accepts. It organizes around it. It builds patterns that match it. If you repeatedly expect struggle, the mind learns struggle. If you repeatedly expect rejection, the mind prepares for rejection. Not because you deserve it, but because the mind is obedient to dominance, not truth. This is why intelligent people remain stuck. This is why hard-working people feel invisible. This is why motivation comes and goes, but results stay the same. The daily mental habit has already decided the outcome before effort ever arrives. You were conditioned into this habit slowly, through observation, through emotional experiences, through what you heard repeatedly when you were younger, through what you saw rewarded and punished. None of it required your permission. The mind learned by exposure, not by logic. Now here is the uncomfortable truth. What was once learned unconsciously is now being practiced voluntarily, even if you are unaware of it. Every time you interpret a setback as proof of limitation, you strengthen the habit. Every time you hesitate because of imagined consequences, you strengthen it again. Every time you tell yourself quietly that now is not the right time, the habit deepens. And yet this is also where your power begins. Because a habit that was built can be replaced. A pattern that was learned can be relearned. But first it must be seen clearly. Awareness is the first disruption. When you notice the tone of your inner dialogue, you interrupt its authority. When you observe your automatic expectations, you weaken their control. Most people never pause long enough to hear what they are telling themselves all day long. They live inside the noise without questioning who is speaking. You are not your passing thoughts, but you do become the thoughts you repeatedly accept without resistance. That is the distinction that changes everything. In this moment, you are standing at a quiet threshold. Nothing dramatic has happened yet. No outer change is required, only recognition. The realization that the results of your life are not random. They are responses. Responses to a mental habit you have been practicing faithfully. Once you see that, you can no longer pretend it is outside your influence. And once you know it is within your influence, a different kind of responsibility begins. A calmer one, a steadier one, the responsibility of choosing what you allow to dominate your inner world. The moment you become aware of this habit, you begin to notice how automatic it is. Thoughts appear before effort. Expectations form before decisions. Reactions rise before reason, and what feels spontaneous is often rehearsed. Not once or twice, but thousands of times over years. Your mind is not idle. It is constantly absorbing impressions and replaying conclusions. Whatever you think most often, especially when emotion is involved, sinks beneath the surface and takes root. That root becomes a pattern. That pattern becomes behavior. And behavior, repeated long enough, becomes a life. You may believe you think freely, but much of your thinking is on repeat. The same doubts dressed in different situations. The same quiet assumptions wearing new circumstances. The mind prefers what is familiar, not what is true. Familiarity feels safe. And safety to the mind is more important than progress. This is why repetition matters more than intensity. A single powerful thought means little if it is not returned to, but a modest thought repeated daily becomes authority. The subconscious does not measure accuracy. It measures frequency. Whatever appears most often is treated as instruction. This is the invisible influence shaping your confidence. If you repeatedly imagine yourself hesitating, the mind learns hesitation. If you repeatedly picture yourself being overlooked, the mind prepares for invisibility. If you repeatedly expect difficulty, the mind scans for obstacles. And it will find them even where none existed before. You are not punished for negative thinking. You are trained by it, quietly, patiently, without judgment. The mind simply obeys. Every outcome you experience is filtered through this inner training. Opportunities appear, but your perception decides whether they feel reachable. Conversations happen, but your expectation decides how you show up. Choices arise, but your inner habit decides which ones feel possible. This is why two people can stand in the same situation and walk away with entirely different results. One expects growth. The other expects resistance. One moves forward naturally. The other hesitates without knowing why. The difference is not talent. It is not background. It is not luck. It is conditioning. Now understand this carefully. The subconscious mind does not respond to what you want occasionally. It responds to what you dwell on consistently. Desire alone is not enough. Hope alone is not enough. The mind requires instruction, and instruction comes through repetition. What you tell yourself when no one is listening matters more than what you say out loud. What you expect in silence shapes what you allow in reality. This is why affirmations spoken once do nothing, while assumptions repeated quietly shape decades. You already use this process every day. The only question is whether you are using it deliberately or by default. Most people leave this to chance. They allow yesterday's emotions to instruct today's thinking. They allow old disappointments to frame new opportunities. They allow past failures to whisper warnings about the future. And because those whispers are familiar, they sound reasonable. But familiarity is not wisdom, it is habit. The moment you begin to question the authority of your habitual thoughts, something shifts. You realize that not every thought deserves agreement. Not every expectation deserves loyalty. You can hear a thought without accepting it as instruction. This is not about fighting the mind. Resistance only strengthens patterns. This is about gently but consistently replacing what you repeat. The subconscious learns not through force but through exposure. Give it a new pattern often enough, and it begins to reorganize. At first, the old habit will argue. It will feel natural. It will feel like common sense. That is how deep conditioning works. But calm persistence outlasts old programming. Repetition, applied deliberately, always wins. You are not trying to become someone else. You are removing interference. You are allowing a more accurate version of you to operate without contradiction. And here is the quiet truth. The moment you change what dominates your inner world, your outer world begins to respond differently, not magically, naturally, because behavior follows belief, and belief follows repetition. The daily mental habit is not a mystery. It is the conversation you allow to continue unchecked. Change the conversation, and you change the direction. At a certain point, repetition reaches a deeper level. It no longer feels like something you are saying. It begins to feel like something you know. This is where belief is formed. Not belief as hope or wish, but belief as quiet certainty. Belief is not created through argument. It is created through emotionalized thought. Whatever you feel while you think is absorbed more quickly and more completely. Emotion is the adhesive that fixes ideas into the subconscious. A thought without feeling passes through. A thought with feeling takes residence. This is why moments of fear shape people so deeply. Fear carries strong emotion, and the mind records it as instruction. But the same is true for confidence, calm, and faith. The mind does not distinguish between destructive emotion and constructive emotion. It only recognizes intensity and repetition. Faith in this sense is not blind optimism. It is a cultivated mental state. It is the result of repeatedly imagining yourself capable, steady, and effective until the mind accepts it as normal. Faith is not something you wait for. It is something you build. Most people misunderstand this. They believe belief comes first, then repetition follows. In reality, repetition comes first. Belief follows naturally. You do not wait to feel confident before you think confident thoughts. You think confident thoughts until confidence becomes familiar. The subconscious mind is deeply loyal. Once it accepts an idea, it works tirelessly to prove it true. It filters perception. It influences memory. It directs attention. It nudges behavior. Not forcefully, but consistently. When belief is established, effort feels lighter. Decisions feel clearer. Action feels natural. Not because the world has changed, but because inner resistance has been removed. You are no longer divided against yourself. This is why autosuggestion is so powerful. What you repeatedly suggest to yourself, especially in moments of calm focus, becomes instruction. The mind accepts suggestion more easily when it is relaxed, not strained. Quiet conviction is stronger than loud declaration. You are always suggesting something to yourself through images you dwell on, through outcomes you expect, through meanings you assign to events. The question is whether your suggestions are intentional or accidental. If you repeatedly imagine yourself failing, even casually, the mind rehearses failure. If you repeatedly imagine yourself composed and capable, the mind prepares for composure. The mind prepares first, and behavior follows. This is not fantasy, it is training. Athletes understand this instinctively. Leaders practice it unknowingly. They see themselves performing well before the moment arrives. By the time action is required, the mind has already been there. Faith grows in silence. It is strengthened when you return to the same constructive thought again and again. Without urgency, without desperation. Calm repetition is the signal of certainty. The mind responds to calm confidence faster than emotional force. Doubt, on the other hand, is fed by scattered thinking. Jumping between hope and fear, wanting and questioning, believing and retreating. The mind receives mixed instructions and produces hesitation. When you commit to a single inner direction, doubt weakens naturally, not because it is fought, but because it is no longer fed. Attention is nourishment. Remove attention, and the old pattern starves. This is the turning point, when you stop negotiating with uncertainty and begin instructing your mind with clarity. When you decide what you will consistently think about yourself, regardless of temporary conditions. Faith is not denial of reality. It is selection of focus. You choose which reality to train for, the one you fear or the one you intend to create. Once belief takes root, it expresses itself quietly, in posture, in tone, in timing, in patience. Others may not know why you feel different, but they will respond differently, because belief carries an energy that does not need explanation. This is how inner change becomes visible without effort. The subconscious aligns the whole system toward what it accepts as true. Once belief is established, discipline takes on a different meaning. It is no longer force, it becomes alignment. You do not push yourself to act. You allow yourself to act in harmony with what you have already accepted as true. This is where definiteness of purpose enters quietly but firmly. When your inner world is scattered, purpose feels vague. When your inner world is ordered, purpose becomes obvious. You stop asking what you should do and begin recognizing what you must do. Definiteness is not intensity. It is clarity. It is the calm decision that this direction is yours, and you will return to it regardless of temporary distractions. A definite mind does not rush. It does not argue. It simply proceeds. Most people struggle with discipline because they try to control behavior without first controlling thought. They attempt to act against their own expectations. This creates inner friction, and friction always leads to exhaustion. True discipline begins internally. It is the discipline of thought selection, the discipline of attention, the discipline of returning again and again to the same constructive inner position. When your purpose is clear, decisions simplify. You no longer waste energy debating every option. You measure choices against your inner direction. What aligns stays, what distracts fades. Inner control is not suppression, it is guidance. You do not eliminate emotion, you direct it. You do not silence thought. You choose which thoughts receive permission to stay. This is a subtle skill, and it develops through practice, not force. Each time you notice your attention drifting toward doubt and gently bring it back to certainty, you strengthen inner authority. Each time you refuse to emotionally rehearse failure, you weaken its influence. This is mental leadership, and like all leadership, it requires consistency, not perfection, consistency. A definite purpose gives your mind a center of gravity. Without it, thoughts drift. With it, thoughts organize. The subconscious prefers order. When given a clear aim, it aligns resources, perception, and behavior toward it. You will notice a shift, less internal debate, less hesitation, more quiet confidence, not because everything is easy, but because you are no longer divided. This is where patience becomes natural. You stop demanding immediate proof. You trust the process because you trust the direction. Urgency fades. Steadiness replaces it. Definiteness does not mean rigidity. It means commitment. You can adjust methods without abandoning purpose. You can learn without losing confidence. You can pause without retreating. When inner control is established, external circumstances lose their power to destabilize you. They inform you, but they do not define you. You respond instead of react. This is the mark of inner mastery. You are not controlled by mood. You are not ruled by temporary outcome. You remain centered because your identity is no longer negotiable. Your daily mental habit has evolved. It is no longer accidental repetition. It is deliberate direction. You choose what you dwell on. You choose what you expect. You choose who you are becoming. And as this becomes natural, something profound happens. Effort decreases while effectiveness increases. You do less, but accomplish more, because every action is supported by belief, purpose, and inner order. This is not dramatic. It is stable. It is calm, and it is powerful. At this stage, transformation is no longer something you chase. It is something you embody. You are not trying to change your life. You are expressing a different identity, and life responds accordingly. Identity is the final authority. When you see yourself as steady, you act steadily. When you see yourself as capable, you move with capability. When you see yourself as someone who expects results, you behave in ways that invite them. No force is required. Identity instructs behavior automatically. This is why lasting change feels quiet. There is no inner debate, no dramatic struggle, no need to convince yourself each morning. You simply operate from a new center. What once required effort now feels natural. What once felt distant now feels appropriate. Your daily mental habit has completed its work. It has moved from unconscious repetition to conscious direction, and finally to integrated identity. You are no longer practicing thoughts, you are living them. Others may call this confidence. Others may call it certainty, but those are only surface descriptions. What is really present is inner order, and inner order always precedes outer success. You no longer measure yourself by passing emotions or temporary outcomes. You understand their place. You allow them to move through without granting them authority. You remain grounded because your foundation is internal. This is calm power, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind that does not require validation, the kind that is felt rather than displayed. From this state, patience becomes strength. Silence becomes clarity. Consistency becomes effortless. You no longer rush toward results. You allow results to catch up to you. The world responds differently to a person who is internally aligned. Opportunities appear more clearly. People sense reliability. Decisions carry weight. Timing improves. Not by chance, but by coherence. You have not changed the world. You have changed your relationship with it. And that changes everything. Remember this, the mind always moves toward what it repeatedly holds. The subconscious always acts on what dominates it. Faith is always cultivated, never accidental, and repetition always becomes character. There is no shortcut beyond this law, and there is no escape from it either. You are always becoming something. The only question is whether that process is conscious or unconscious. When you choose deliberately, calmly, and consistently, you reclaim authorship of your results, not through force, not through noise, but through inner mastery. This is the timeless truth. Inner order creates outer order, and the life you experience will always be a reflection of the mental habit you practice daily.